Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Permex Petroleum's channel. We're sitting here once again with the star, Mehran. Mehran, how are you doing today?
Doing excellent. Doing excellent. Yourself?
Doing pretty wonderful. Glad to have you on as always. So,
As
I wanted
always.
to kind of dive into a little bit of a discussion of the oil industry in relation to the U.S. Now, a lot of people think oil, they think Middle East, and they're really not quite aware of what a powerhouse the U.S. is when it comes to oil production now. Can you kind of explain it to people?
Well, yeah, we can go through it. I mean, I don't like getting into the politics of it, but as far as the fundamentals, let's chat about that. Sure. Historically, when you look at it, U.S. was not one of the top producers. It was one of the producers that continued to grow, but Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, some time ago, these were the major producers. However, things shifted. In fact, as of 2019 onwards, U.S. became the number one producer. U.S. production hit 12 million barrels. And everyone thinks Saudi Arabia or the Middle East is after that, but it's not true. Russia is the next one, actually. So it
Awesome.
was U.S. production, then Russian production was approximately 11 million, and you had Saudi Arabia, which was in 10.2 million approximately barrels of oil per day. That was the production. Right now, where we stand, things have shifted. U.S. production has come down. The whole global challenges that were facing the oil industry pre-COVID was the fact that Saudi Arabia and Russia were losing market share because the U.S. was producing so much and was doing so great in Texas, in the Permian Basin. That's where we are.
Mhm.
That their production was taking away market share from the Middle East. So what they did was the price fixing to a degree. They started to go flood the market, and pre-COVID, oil prices crashed because of that. I don't blame them. Think about it. A new player comes into the game and takes over your market share and expects you to decrease your production to create equilibrium within the marketplace. Doesn't make sense. But never in history has the U.S. bowed down to other forces. I don't see them doing it on this either. So that's where we are now. However, I do have to mention this about it. We're importing still. Okay, just so you know, we are importing oil. Our imports have gone down for the first time in history. U.S. as of 2019 onward became exporting oil as well, which is amazing. But if the regulations continue in our industry under the current administration, we can become a importer again versus an exporter, and then dependent on foreign countries more. It has its pros and cons to a degree. Looking at it from an environmental standpoint, sure, in certain areas on the federal land, fracking the way it's done shouldn't be done. I
Yeah.
agree. But looking at it from, do we want to be dependent on Middle Eastern countries? I don't think we do. I
Yeah.
really don't think we do. Um, do that. I mean, my main thing would be how much are we importing from the Middle East? Historically, Canada was our number one import. We would get, if I'm not mistaken, around 4 million barrels a day in 2020 from Canada. But the Canadian government, which is highly environmental and carbon taxing everything, their production has drastically decreased. So our imports
Yeah.
from them decrease. So these regulations will push us towards importing from the Middle East.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. It's like yeah, as I said, like a lot of people view it completely differently. They're viewing kind of an old viewpoint, thinking it's all coming from Middle East. But kind of getting into it now, it does kind of point out the potential that is still very much there in the U.S. oil sector. It's still
It
a very
is.
strong sector.
Listen, the U.S. I mean, right now the U.S. it's dropped. It dropped down from 10 to 12 million barrels. It's down to 10.3 million barrels. Okay, it's still leading. You have Russia at 9.3. You have Saudi Arabia at 8.1, and after that, now, believe it or not, is China. Now,
Wow.
China has stepped up the game. China is now introducing fracking. China is bringing on shale plays. So I foresee China becoming a country that the U.S. has to deal with down the line because they're not like Saudi Arabia and Russia that they could easily be pushed over.
Yeah.
China will go right into the U.S. on this production once its shale is developed. But
All right.
overall, I mean that's the case. This is a topic that I could talk hours and hours and give you numbers. It's so complicated when you involve the oil industry and geopolitics. They're intertwined, and let's just leave it at that. Let's not become a net importer. Let's become a net exporter.
Agreed. All right, well, let's move from the macroscope to the microscope here and get back to talking about Permex. So when you guys are looking at a property, when you guys are looking at some sort of asset, how does buying typically go for you guys? Tell me about how you guys come across them, how you vet them, and then how you wind up actually making the purchase.
It's a comprehensive vetting process, but let's discuss how we get them and what type of structures we go after. You can go after buying properties in our sector from having your contacts within the industry. For instance, we have contacts at Conoco, we have contacts at BOG, we have contacts at various other oil and gas companies that let us know if they're about to divest of certain assets, and then we start our due diligence. That's great. Other ways is through listing acreages. So you have various platforms. Think about the MLS for multiple listings for real estate.
Mm-hmm.
In the oil industry, we have PLS, Petroleum Listing Services. So there are these members-only oil and gas listing services that you can go through as well, brokers and brokerage houses that they vetted on their part, which is fantastic. But we will never depend on an external group vetting our deals. So we review them that way. We bring them in-house. We run the first and foremost thing we run is the geological analysis on the deals. Our geology goes through it, understands if the geology makes sense, if the formations are there, if the reserves original oil in place has not been depleted, and what those numbers look like. If they look good, fine. It goes to the next stage of our DD, which is engineering. The engineer reviews it, understands, okay, here is where it's producing from. How much more can we produce from it by doing what to it? They put a comprehensive plan together, whether it's a water flood, a CO2 implementation, new drill program. And then if it passes that stage, then it goes to our land, title, and abstract. And once it's passed through all of those, we run a full economic evaluation on it and put a price target. In today's market, for instance, a lot of companies pay 3 times cash flow multiple to buy an asset. We don't. 3 times multiple would be running it at 60 oil. We would like to run it at 40 oil. We'll run the 3-year cash flow multiple, but not at 60 oil. We'll run it at 40 oil. And if it makes sense at 40 oil to buy it in today's oil price, we'll purchase it. That's essentially our process in going after it if we have a deal in front of us. There is one other way people and companies go through this, and it's actually quite interesting. We have live auctions. We have oil and gas auctions that we go through. Typically, we don't go after auctions that are related to working interest or bigger properties. We go after smaller properties through auction houses. And sometimes you find gems. You do find auction houses sometimes have great properties that you have adequate time to vet, go through, and purchase as well. It's quite interesting and fun at times to be in those.
Yeah, auctions are fun, and as you mentioned, if you're not seeking, you won't find, right? So there's always some uncut gems in the rough there, and it's interesting that this is another industry where people are watching auctions, especially the savvy ones.
It is, and you never want to limit yourself to one skewed way of reviewing deals. You want to have access to auction house. You want to have access to your brokerages that constantly bring you deals, and you want to have access to those contacts you have in the large cap corporations that give you a bit of insider information when things might start coming online. That way, combining all of those, you have the best pool of properties to review and analyze for yourself to pick the best suitable one. And if you can get that, that would be great.
Wonderful. All right, Mehran. Well, again, thanks for your insight on that. It's interesting to see how Permex goes about picking properties and buying them. Can we shift focus just a little bit and talk about, let's talk about your website and corporate presentation. When will you guys be updating that to include your recent acquisitions? And do you anticipate any changes to your guys' reserves?
Okay, yeah. With regard to the website, we are in the process. If you go on our website right now, it does state that we're updating the information. We have purchased properties. We have a few more to go. Once these are done, then we can go ahead and update all the data and compile that and update. So I believe sometime in May, we should have both of those updated if we close on a few more deals that we anticipate to do so. The reserve question, yes, it does impact your reserve as you're acquiring, whether it's working interest or royalty interest. The net production that comes to you, the net PDP, will apply. And if there's a PUD, being the permitted wells, those would be categorized as PUDs. Those add to your value. So both of those would add to the reserve capitalization of a company such as ours. We will be updating that as well.
Wonderful. Well, as always, thank you for the time. Stay tuned, everybody, for further updates. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Mehran, have a wonderful day.
You as well.